Yeah, and I wanted to touch on like some of your training habits because when you talk to someone that's obviously won the world championships and stuff, and you've been around people that have won world championships, there's certain trends and certain things that I'm sure you've seen or you've taken part in. What were some things either that you've seen or that you've done that were useful to you with your training? Like for instance, like I know that some people love to drill, some people love to, they're like lifting weights and they think that's been helpful. What were some of the things that you found really helpful to you when you were competing at that highest level in jiu-jitsu?
Yeah, so I think looking afterwards, like now that I'm retired and I look back to my career and I see everything I did, I think I think I can even talk about that and talk about your YouTube channel, for example.
Okay.
For example, you have a very successful YouTube channel, so I'm pretty sure I know what you did. You tested a bunch of stuff, and then little by little you were seeing what works the best, and you were doing more what works the best and less what works the least, right?
For the most part, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so I think that's exactly what I did in my jiu-jitsu career. So I tested everything. Like people say, "Oh, you gotta drill a lot." I drilled a lot. Oh, you gotta train 4 times per day. I did train 4 times per day. Oh, you gotta run. I did a ton of running. You gotta do conditioning with kettlebell. You gotta lift weight. You gotta train judo. You gotta train wrestling. The secret is not to roll a lot, is to do a lot of specific training. So I pretty much did everything, and I was always like analyzing the results and trying to see what worked the best for me. Not because sometimes what works the best for you is not what works the best for me.
Right.
So you gotta. I think that's. I always try to tell this to everybody. Like, you have your instructor. Instructor is gonna tell you what to do, but also try to have some self awareness of what works for you. So and then I did that with the jiu-jitsu techniques. I did that with conditioning. I did that with. So at some point, I started realizing what worked the best for me. What worked the best for me was to train jiu-jitsu twice a day, not 3 times as people say, or not 4 times. To train jiu-jitsu 2 times per day, and during the sparring, to go as hard as I could with the toughest guys that were on the mat. That was my formula, and I would also do conditioning twice a week, and sometimes once a week judo or wrestling. So my formula was to train, let's call it jiu-jitsu, conditioning, and standing, one train. Okay, so my formula was to train between 10 to 13 classes per week, and going as hard as I could on every single class. I would tap a lot. I would have horrible days, but after testing everything, after testing 4 times per day, after testing kettlebell, conditioning, lifting weights, drilling 3 hours per day, nothing worked so well for me as this, like training twice a day, as hard as I could, and between 10 to 12 classes per week. When I was younger, I would do probably like 13 classes. It was like 10 jiu-jitsus, 2 conditionings, 1 judo. Then when I was getting older, I started decreasing because my body couldn't handle, and when I'm saying like about training as hard as I could with the toughest guys on the mat, I'm saying like one average day for me was probably like rolling twice with Marcelo, one average class for me was rolling twice with Marcelo, twice with Mateus Diniz, one with John Satava, another one with Chinoco, and all these guys, that was my, not average day, my regular day. Not average because this is super tough, but that was my regular day, and there's no way to train like this and to not tap at least 1, 2, or 3 times per day, and I would tap a ton. But in my mind, I was doing the right thing, and when the tournament was coming up, I would stop training for 2 or 3 or 4 days even. And then when Saturday came, I felt like, man, I'm ready, and I'm ready for anything. If he passes my guard, I'm going to recover. If he takes my back, I know how to escape. Mateus took my back 100 times. Marcelo took my back. And I'm not going to get tired because I train harder than them. and I'm gonna attack them from the first second until the last second. And if they beat me, it's because they were really better than me on that day, and I'm gonna go home cool, like. So that was my thing, like. And
how much time would you give, like, say you're doing a certain training regimen, how much time would you give yourself to experiment? Would you give yourself like 8 weeks, or like say you had a tournament coming up, and then for certain tournaments, did you stick to a certain style of training just because you knew it kind of worked and you had a big tournament coming up? Maybe you didn't want to, roll the dice too much.
yeah, I didn't have like I wish I had that, but I didn't have this science, like that. I'm
Yeah.
for it was going to be 12 weeks experiment, but it was more like, for example, there was a time that I was doing drilling. I had the mat area on my living room in São Paulo, and then I would drill every day for 2 hours. After like 1 month, I started questioning what I'm doing. I'm not getting better, and and it's the worst part of my day. I don't enjoy, and but that's the thing. I know a bunch of people who drill a lot, and they're very successful.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not saying that you should not drill or you should drill. I'm saying that you should test and see if you are getting better or not.
Yeah, I think that's part of like an athlete's path is to, because you develop this intuition about your body. Like you kind of get a sixth sense of what's working, what's not working, or how you feel based off of it. Let me know what you think about this. Like one of the things, like, so for instance, when I first started coaching, it was mainly like mostly white belts, a couple blue belts, and that was about it in the beginning. Right now we've got some tough guys and I can get some pretty tough training in, but back then it was very sparse. And one of the things I used to do was if I stepped on the mat, I would have like a specific move. So I used to go down to my coaches, or my friend who's now my coach down in Tennessee, because he had a bunch of guys winning pans and everything else and doing well in the Masters. And I went down and would train with him. He would like teach a couple techniques during his competition class. I would come back up to the gym where I train at like that night, and I would teach a class. And then during the class, I would be focused on hitting one move the whole time. So like I would just be doing that. And that to me was almost like an active version of drilling, where I'm just trying to hit that move over and over again. And, for me, it's kind of like drilling, because this white or blue belt's probably not going to stop it, but it's still like me getting a rep in, but it's a lot more fun because we're actually rolling.
Yeah. So that's very, very nice. Chill. And also again, like, it sounds like we're both similar here, because that was kind of my thing as well. Like, take one move and work on that move as much as I could. And so, for example, when I discovered half guard, I was blue belt. Then every single row I would pull half guard. I would shake hands and pull half guard. It would be quick. I didn't want to give my partner the chance to pull guard, because I would practice my half guard, and I would get smashed. They would pass my guard. And I would keep doing, and I started trying, like, okay, if he's on side control, how can I go to the half guard? If he took my back, how can I go to the half guard? If he's on the mount, how can I go to the half guard? If I'm getting swept, how can I be swept and put in the half guard? And so that was my style as well. I was always like focusing on one thing and working on that thing as much as I could. I would always try to learn everything, because I think it's important, even like to know how to react if your opponent does that against you.
Right.
So I would never be closed-minded to learn. And I think I showed that on my YouTube channel. Everybody I'm filming with, I'm really trying to learn. I'm genuinely trying to learn that person's move. And but when it was time to compete, when it was time to train hard, I would only do one thing. And also, like, as I said, like, I would always try to train with the toughest people on the mat. And it's hard to do something different, It's hard. So I'm gonna start trying my spider guard here against Marcelo. That's not gonna work, So that's kind of what I did, and I think one thing that helped is that I was forced to train with lower level people sometimes, because a long period of my career, my way to monetize, for example, when I was in São Paulo, my way to monetize was to go to Europe and stay 3 months there, teaching seminars back to back, and would be like 1 week seminar per school, would be more like a camp. So those were the times that I would test my spider guard, that I would test my, because it was not like the Marcelo Garcias that I was training with.
Yeah.